Have you ever felt like you're living life on autopilot? Like there's something you should be doing, but you don't quite know what it is. And deep down, there's a quiet feeling that follows you. I should be somewhere else, being someone else, living something bigger. Now let me ask you honestly, what if the problem isn't a lack of purpose? What if the problem is the way you've been taught to think about it, because you were conditioned to search as if purpose were something hidden, waiting to be found at the perfect moment? But what if that's not true? What if purpose isn't something you find, but something you build? And what if this anxiety you feel isn't a sign that you're lost, but a sign that you haven't started building yet? Most people live like this, waiting for a sign, waiting for clarity, waiting for that moment when everything finally makes sense. You start something, but stop because it doesn't feel like it. You change direction, but the doubt comes back. And then you think, when I find my purpose, everything will flow. But in reality, what happens is an invisible cycle. You start. You don't feel immediate certainty. You interpret that as, this isn't for me, and you quit again and again, and time passes, and the feeling of being lost only grows. And then something even quieter shows up. You look around, and it feels like everyone has found their place. Someone is already moving forward. Someone seems clear. Someone looks like they were born knowing, and you start comparing. But what you may not realize is that comparison isn't just mental, it's physiological. It activates your body's threat system. Your brain interprets, I'm behind, I'm at risk, and then cortisol rises, your breathing shortens, your body tightens, and in that moment, you're no longer searching for purpose. You're trying to escape the feeling of not being enough. Now here's the point that changes everything. Neuroscience shows something counterintuitive. You don't feel purpose and then act. You act, and then your brain builds the feeling of purpose. Because two systems are at play. Dopamine, novelty, beginnings, excitement, serotonin, progress, stability, meaning most people get stuck in dopamine. They start, get excited, but stop when the emotion fades. But purpose isn't born in excitement. It's born in repetition. When you stayed, and even without feeling certain, your brain starts registering, this matters. And then, meaning begins to emerge. Not before, after. What holds you back isn't lack of ability, it's a quiet belief. My life already has a fixed purpose, and I need to discover it. But do you see what that does to you? It puts you on hold. It turns you into someone who watches instead of someone who builds. Now flip that. If purpose is built, then every action you take matters. You're not waiting for a path. You're creating one. There's a passage in Ecclesiastes that says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. Now hear this like a human being speaking to you. It's not saying, wait for something big to happen. It's saying, what's already in front of you is enough to begin. Historically, this was a call to responsibility. But from the perspective of the mind, this is highly precise. Because when you act with intention, you activate your prefrontal cortex. This is the area that organizes direction, focus, decision-making. In other words, purpose isn't hidden. It starts forming the moment you choose to engage with what's already in front of you. Now, notice your body. When you do something without meaning, it goes into conservation mode, low energy distraction resistance. But when you decide, this matters, something shifts biologically. Noradrenaline increases focus, improves your body, moves into presence. You're not just changing a thought, you're changing your physiological state. And that matters because purpose isn't just mental, it's embodied. In Genesis, there's a simple image. The human being was placed in a garden to cultivate and to keep it. It wasn't a finished world. It was a space in development. Now translate that into your life. You weren't placed into something complete. You were placed into a process. And here's a deep principle of consciousness. What you pay attention to and care for expands. What you ignore weakens. Your brain works like this. Your life does too. Before any recognition, Jesus lived in the ordinary. No stage, no validation, no visibility. But that time wasn't empty. It was internal construction. He didn't wait for a special moment. He brought presence into the moment that existed, and that reveals something precise. If you can't find meaning in the simple, you won't sustain it in the extraordinary. In psychology, there's a model called self-determination theory. It shows that humans feel purpose when three things are met. Competence, you see yourself improving connection. It impacts someone. Autonomy, you feel you're choosing now. Notice, this doesn't appear ready-made. It's built. And there's something even deeper. Your brain has a filter called the selective attention system. It starts showing you more of what you reinforce. So when you engage with something, your world begins to reorganize around it. Now do this. Think of a simple task in your routine, something you do automatically. Now change just one thing. Ask yourself, who is impacted when this is done well? Stay with that for a few seconds. Notice what happens. The weight shifts, the resistance softens. This is your system moving from obligation to contribution. 3 men were working. They asked the first, "What are you doing?" He replied, "Breaking stones." The second said, "Making money." The third looked and said, "I'm building a cathedral." The reality was the same, but the internal state transformed everything. Today, you have too many choices, too much information, too much comparison, too many possibilities, and that creates an invisible effect, paralysis. You wait for the perfect path, and because of that, you commit to none. But purpose isn't born from the perfect choice. It's born from imperfect consistency. Your mind learns through repetition. What you do consistently becomes identity. So understand this precisely. Purpose isn't an event. It's a system. You build, repeat, reinforce, and your brain integrates it. And then, without noticing, something changes. You're in the middle of a simple task, and you feel presence. Before you acted out of obligation. Now, there's intention. Before you wanted to leave. Now, you stay. And the deepest part is that the world didn't change. The way you organized yourself inside did. So maybe purpose was never something hidden, waiting for you to find it. Maybe it has always been in your hands, waiting for you to build it. Now the question isn't, what is my purpose? The question is, what am I going to build with what's already in front of me? Because in the end, you don't find meaning, you create it, and your mind is already responding, even in silence. Now decide, will you keep waiting, or will you start today building? Today you realize that your mind responds to what you repeat, and that the teachings of Jesus aren't just inspiration, they are direction for your consciousness. They shape maturity, they build discernment, they develop a stable mind, one that isn't dependent on circumstances. But transformation doesn't happen just because you understand something. It begins with a decision, and it's solidified through small actions, repeated every single day. A video can awaken you, but consistency is what rewires you. That's how the mind is reprogrammed. That's how emotional independence is formed. That's how you move out of internal scarcity and begin to live with clarity, stability, and abundance of awareness. And from that abundance comes a lighter life, more inwardly prosperous, less controlled by fear, more aligned with purpose. Now here's the turning point. If you leave this moment and change nothing, your mind will keep reinforcing yesterday's pathways. And yesterday's pathways produce yesterday's results. But if you begin today, even with one simple step, a new structure starts to form. What you do in the next 24 hours begins shaping the direction of the next few months. If you want to step out of the anxiety cycle, if you want to anchor your mind in truth daily and build a life that feels steady, light, and inwardly prosperous, I've organized a practical path to help you do exactly that. This isn't about more information. It's about training. It's about guided consistency. It's about intentionally rewiring your mind. If something in you resonated with this, don't ignore that pull. If you feel ready to go deeper, access is available through the link in the description. Not because you need to buy something, but because this might be the moment you choose to begin differently. It's a next step, but it could be the beginning of an entirely new internal foundation.